Hi, Dana here. We haven't been meeting as a congregation in our church building for worship services for a long time now. And many of you realize that this is because we are following health orders that are in place in Alberta. Not only are we following them because that's the law, but also because we want to care for each other in the church and also care for the communities that we all go back to after worship is finished. It seems that because of the ways that we do fellowship, the ways that we greet each other, the ways that we get excited to see each other and get real up close in each other's personal space, the way that we pass a common plate, there's just a lot of concern about congregate settings becoming super spreader events. And so we want to be really careful about how we gather together and about meeting together in large settings. Recently, though, Alberta has given faith communities permission to meet with a maximum of 50 people, or a third of our membership, whichever number is smaller, for worship services only. There's still a lot of restrictions that are in place. We need to make sure that social distancing is still happening. We are not allowed to sing because that's a way for the virus to spread much quicker. We cannot share a common plate or pass around communion elements. We cannot have fellowship or share food or coffee before or after a service. There has to be proper screening. We can't have nursery or Sunday school. Those who are sick cannot attend. And so there's just a lot of restrictions that make meeting together, while a possibility, would shape it to look very different. And so even though that's the case, even though there's restrictions, because of this relaxed opening up, Chad and myself and admin have been considering what it might look like for us to open up for worship services in these parameters and with proper protocols in place. Now there's still a ton of logistics to be worked out, as we can't even get together with everyone. We have to figure out how we decide which people come and how many services to have and what our services might look like. So there's three things that we want to acknowledge while we consider this. The first is that there's going to be some frustration on both sides of the coin. There's people who are frustrated because we would like the rules to be relaxed so that we could meet together in bigger settings or to have nursery, those sorts of things. And there's also frustration for those of us who are maybe concerned about opening up and what that might mean for us or for our communities. And so there's frustration on both sides. And I was on a phone call last night with Dr. Hinshaw and Jason Kenney, and it was clear that faith leaders around Alberta are worried about both of those situations. So we want to acknowledge that. The second thing that we want to acknowledge is that we know that there is a risk in doing this. There's an individual risk, which each one of you would have to assess for yourself. Individual risk would mean that you might have a chronic illness, or you are older and are more at risk of having a severe outcome if you got COVID. And so you personally would have to decide whether or not you wanted to take that individual risk and come to a service like that. You might also have individual risk if you work in a setting where many people live together or where you cannot social distance in the proper way. So that's individual risk, and you would have to make that on your own. But there is also communal risk. So if we don't follow protocols, or if people come in and don't follow protocols, that could have a significant impact on our community health-wise, not only just our community, but also the communities that we go back to. So that's a risk that we would have to be conscious of, that we want to continue following protocols. We also know, the third thing we want to acknowledge is that we also know that if we were to meet together for worship, it will not be the same as worship was before COVID. And we need to acknowledge that, and that might be something that is sad for many of you. Many of you are tired of the changes that we've needed to take, but this could also be a really beautiful thing because it would allow us to be creative in the ways that we gather. It allows us to do a few different things. And so it could actually just deepen our spirituality, and we want to acknowledge that as well. So we hold that tension of it's not the same, but it still could be beautiful. With all this in mind, we want to give you an opportunity to have input, and we want to hear your creative ideas around these things. So we want to gather, we're not quite sure how yet, but it will be either over the phone or through Zoom. We want to gather on Wednesday, May 27 at 7:30 p.m. That's Wednesday, May 27 at 7:30 p.m. Where you'll have an opportunity to submit your questions, your ideas, your concerns, and we will try to take those into consideration as we move forward, and also try to answer your questions if we have answers, or respond to you. If you cannot come for some reason to that meeting, please submit your questions either through email to the church office or through the direct message on Facebook or Instagram. We ask that as you think about coming or asking questions or having concerns, that you think about the following questions. Would you and or your family attend something like that? Is this a risk as a community that we desire to take? And if we met for worship, what are some creative ways that we could worship? What are the kinds of things that would deepen your walk with God in this time and connect you to others? So the questions are, would you and your family attend? Is this a risk as a community that we desire to take? And if we met for worship, what are some creative ways that we could worship together? So think about those things. Join us Wednesday, May 27 at 7:30. Look to the bridge for details. Facebook and Instagram will have it on there as well. And so we just invite you to come. It would be great to chat with you. All right, grace and peace. Enjoy your weekend. We'll talk to you later.